Dear soul, if this story finds you tonight, it's not by accident. Maybe your heart needed a reminder that kindness still exists, and someone out there understands. Rain drummed softly against the windows of Rosewood Kitchen. The droplets traced lazy paths down the glass. Inside, the amber glow of vintage Edison bulbs cast warm shadows across empty tables draped in checkered cloth. Jasper Thorne stood behind the counter, his weathered hands gripping a crumpled job application. At 42, his salt and pepper beard framed a face etched with loss. The black chef's coat he wore hung loose on his diminished frame, a reminder of better days when laughter filled these walls. His restaurant had been struggling for months, ever since Delilah passed away. She had been his sous chef, his partner, his everything. The bell above the door chimed softly. A young woman entered, shaking raindrops from her auburn hair. She wore a simple white blouse and dark jeans, carrying a worn leather portfolio under her arm. Her movements were graceful yet purposeful, like someone who had learned to navigate the world with quiet determination. "Mr. Thorne?" Her voice carried a slight southern accent, warm as honey. "I'm Savannah Creek. I called about the chef position." Jasper looked up from the application, his tired brown eyes meeting hers. Something flickered there, a recognition he couldn't quite place. "You're early," he said, his voice gravelly from months of barely speaking above a whisper. "I believe in making a good impression." Savannah smiled, but there was something guarded in her expression. "I know you're looking for someone with experience. I've worked in kitchens since I was 16. Experience doesn't mean much if you can't cook with heart." Jasper set down the application and studied her face. She was perhaps 28, with freckles scattered across her nose and eyes the color of sage. "What makes you think you can handle this place?" Savannah's fingers tightened on her portfolio. "Because I understand loss, Mr. Thorne, and I believe food can heal more than just hunger." The words hung between them like a challenge. Jasper had interviewed 7 candidates in the past month, each one leaving him more convinced that Rosewood Kitchen was destined to close. But something about this woman made him pause. "Show me what you've got," he said finally. Savannah nodded and followed him into the kitchen. The space was immaculate but cold, stainless steel surfaces reflecting the fluorescent lights overhead. She ran her fingers along the prep counter, her touch reverent. "What was your wife's specialty?" she asked softly. The question caught Jasper off guard. He hadn't mentioned Delilah in any of his job postings. "How did you know I was married?" "Your wedding ring," Savannah said simply, "and the way you look at these walls like they're holding memories you're afraid to lose." Jasper's throat tightened. "She made the best jambalaya this side of New Orleans. And her cornbread." He trailed off, unable to finish. "Would you like me to cook something for you?" That's usually how job interviews work in a kitchen. Savannah opened her portfolio and pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook. The pages were yellow with age, filled with handwritten recipes and faded blue ink. "I'd like to make jambalaya, if that's all right." Jasper felt his chest constrict. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Please." There was something desperate in her voice now. "Just let me cook for you. One dish. If you don't like it, I'll leave and never bother you again." Against his better judgment, Jasper nodded. He watched as Savannah move through his kitchen with surprising familiarity, gathering ingredients from a walk-in cooler. She worked with the efficiency of someone who had spent years perfecting her craft, her hands steady as she diced vegetables and seasoned the rice. The aroma that began to fill the kitchen made Jasper's knees weak. It was exactly like Delilah's jambalaya, the perfect balance of spices, the smoky depth of the andouille sausage, the way the rice absorbed every flavor without becoming mushy. He gripped the edge of the counter, his knuckles white. "How?" he whispered. Savannah looked up from the pot, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Because she taught me." The wooden spoon clattered to the floor as Jasper stared at her. "What did you say?" "Your wife taught me how to cook. Delilah Marie Thorne, née Beaumont. She was my mother." The words hit Jasper like a physical blow. He stumbled backward, his mind reeling. "That's impossible. Delilah never had children. She couldn't. We tried for years. She had me when she was 17. Savannah's voice was barely above a whisper. "She gave me up for adoption because she was alone and scared. She told me about you, about this place, about how cooking was her way of showing love. Jasper's legs gave out, and he sank onto a prep stool. She never told me. In 15 years of marriage, she never said a word. She was terrified you'd leave her. Savannah's voice grew stronger. She grew up in Baton Rouge, but after she gave me up, she changed her name from Delilah Beaumont to Delilah Beau and moved to Alabama. She worked 3 jobs to put herself through culinary school, never telling anyone about her past. But how could she hide something like that? We shared everything. Savannah reached into her portfolio and pulled out a manila folder. She didn't hide it. She buried it so deep she almost convinced herself it wasn't real. She opened the folder, revealing a birth certificate, adoption papers, and hospital records. She told me in her letters that she practiced lying about her past until she believed it herself. Jasper's hands shook as he examined the documents. The birth certificate was real, dated 28 years ago. Mother, Delilah Marie Beaumont. Father, unknown. The adoption papers showed placement with a Creek family in Vermont. She changed her story depending on who asked. Savannah continued. She told you she was from a small town in Louisiana, that her parents died in a car accident when she was 18. She told her culinary school she was from Alabama, that she was putting herself through school after aging out of foster care. But I met her in Alabama. She was working at that little cafe in Birmingham. She moved there after culinary school. She was running from her past, trying to become someone new. Savannah's voice softened. She wrote that meeting you was the first time she felt like she could stop running. But by then, the lie was too big to undo. Jasper stared at the documents, his mind racing. There were signs, he said slowly. She'd get this look every May 15th, like she was somewhere else entirely. And she never wanted to talk about having children of our own, said she was content with just us. May 15th is my birthday. The words hung in the air like a confession. Jasper remembered those days, how Delilah would disappear into the kitchen and bake for hours, making elaborate cakes that she'd give away to customers. She'd say she was practicing new recipes, but there was always something frantic about it, desperate. She'd make chocolate cake with raspberry filling, Jasper said, his voice breaking. Every year, she said it was her favorite, but she never ate a bite. It was my favorite when I was little. She wrote about it in her letters. Savannah pulled out a bundle of envelopes tied with a faded ribbon. She wrote me letters for years, but she never sent them. She was afraid you'd find out, afraid I'd reject her, afraid of destroying the life she'd built. Jasper's hands trembled as he untied the ribbon. The first letter was dated 3 years after their wedding. Asterisk, my dear Savannah, today you turn 8, and I baked your favorite cake. Jasper asked why I was crying, and I told him I was thinking about my mother. It wasn't a lie. I was thinking about how I failed to be the mother you deserved. I hope your real mother remembered it was your birthday. I hope she made you feel special. Asterisk, he read letter after letter, each one revealing the depth of Delilah's secret pain. She wrote about watching other mothers with their children, about lying awake at night wondering if Savannah was happy, about the guilt that ate at her every day. But how do I know this isn't some elaborate con? Jasper asked, his voice harder now. You show up right after she dies, knowing things only she would know. How do I know you're not just someone who heard her story and decided to take advantage? Savannah nodded, as if she'd expected this question. Because I can prove it. She pulled out her phone and showed him a photo of a young woman with dark hair and Delilah's eyes. This is me at 18. And this, she swiped to another photo, is the locket she left at the hospital when she gave me up. The locket was small and silver, engraved with a magnolia flower. Jasper recognized it immediately. Delilah had worn an identical one every day of their marriage, claiming it was her grandmother's. She had 2 made, Savannah explained. One for her, one for me. She kept mine until she could give it to me herself, but she never got the chance. Jasper stared at the photos, his skepticism crumbling. She told me it was her grandmother's. She said it was the only thing she had left of her family. In a way, it was true. I was the only family she had left after she gave me up. Savannah's voice was gentle. She also left this. She showed him a small wooden spoon, worn smooth by use. She carved it herself when she was pregnant with me. She said in her letters that she hoped someday I'd learn to cook with it. The spoon was identical to the one Delilah used for tasting, the one she claimed was her lucky spoon. Jasper had teased her about it, saying it was just a piece of wood, but she treasured it like a family heirloom. "How did you find me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I hired a private investigator when I turned 18, but I was too scared to reach out. I've been following your restaurant online for years, reading reviews, watching from a distance." Savannah's eyes filled with tears. "When I saw the obituary 6 months ago, I knew I had to come. Not just for me, but for her. She loved this place, and she wouldn't want to die. But why now? Why wait until after she was gone?" "Because I was a coward." Savannah's voice broke. "I was afraid she'd reject me, afraid you'd hate me for disrupting your life. But then I read about the restaurant struggling, and I realized I was being selfish. She needed help, and I could provide it." Jasper looked at the evidence spread across the prep counter. The documents, the photos, the locket, the spoon. But more than that, he saw the truth in Savannah's eyes, the same gentle sadness that had always shadowed Delilah's brightest moments. "She wrote about you too," Savannah said softly. "In the letters. She said you were the first person who ever made her feel like she deserved to be loved. She was terrified that if you knew about me, you'd think she was damaged goods. I would never have thought that." Jasper's voice was fierce. "I would have helped her find you. She knew that. That's what scared her most. She was afraid that if you found me, you'd realize she'd been lying to you all along. She thought you'd leave her." The jambalaya was perfect. Jasper ate slowly, tasting memories in every bite. It was exactly the way Delilah made it, down to the extra bay leaf she always added at the end. But there was something else too, a subtle difference that made it uniquely Savannah's. "You added something," he said, "a touch of maple syrup. It's something I learned from my adoptive mother in Vermont. She said it brings out the smokiness in sausage." Savannah looked nervous. "I hope that's okay." "It's perfect." Jasper set down his fork and looked at her, really looked at her. She had Delilah's hands, the same long fingers that had danced across cutting boards and whisked countless sauces. But her smile was different, brighter somehow, carrying hope instead of hidden sorrow. "You said you've been following the restaurant online. How long have you been planning this?" "Since the day I read her obituary. I saw the photos of you at the funeral, saw how lost you looked. I started researching the restaurant's finances, reading the reviews that mentioned how the food wasn't the same anymore." Savannah's voice grew steadier. "I knew I had to help, but I didn't know how to approach you. I couldn't just walk in and say, 'Hi, I'm your dead wife's secret daughter, so you applied for the job.' I figured if I could prove I belonged in the kitchen, the rest would follow. I just didn't expect it to be so hard to tell you the truth." Jasper stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. "I need proof. Real proof. A DNA test." "Of course." Savannah didn't hesitate. "I brought a testing kit with me. I was hoping you'd ask." She pulled a small box from her portfolio, the kind available at any pharmacy. "We can do it right now if you want. Results take about a week." Jasper stared at the box, then at this young woman who claimed to be his wife's daughter. "If this is true, if you really are a child, then why didn't you tell me before she died? She had cancer for 6 months. She had time. She tried." Savannah's voice was soft. In her last letter, she wrote that she was going to tell you after Christmas. She wanted one more perfect holiday together before she risked losing you. But the cancer moved faster than anyone expected. Jasper closed his eyes, remembering those final weeks. Delilah had been acting strange, like she was building up to something important. She'd started several serious conversations that she never finished, claiming she was too tired to continue. She was scared, Savannah continued. Scared of dying. Scared of leaving you alone. Scared of taking her secrets to the grave. But she was most scared of hurting you. She did hurt me by not trusting me with the truth. She knew that. She wrote about it in her last letter. Savannah pulled out one final envelope, this one newer than the others. She asked me to give this to you if anything happened to her before she could tell you herself. Jasper's hands shook as he opened the envelope. The letter was shorter than the others, written in Delilah's careful script, but shakier, as if she'd been weak when she wrote it. Asterisk, my beloved Jasper. If you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true. I'm gone, and I never found the courage to tell you about Savannah. I know you'll be angry, and you have every right to be. I lied to you for 15 years, not because I didn't trust you, but because I didn't trust myself. I was so afraid of losing you that I risked losing everything. Savannah is the best part me. The part one gave away because I was too young and scared to be the mother she deserved. If she's found you, then love has found a way. Please don't let my cowardice destroy what we built together. Take care of each other, and remember that love isn't always perfect, but it's always worth fighting for. All my love, always and forever, Delilah. Asterisk. Jasper read the letter 3 times before he could speak. She knew she was dying when she wrote this. She gave it to her lawyer with instructions to give it to me if anything happened to her. She also left me the recipes and enough money to travel here. Savannah wiped her eyes. She planned for this moment, even if she couldn't live to see it. They took the DNA test that afternoon, swabbing their cheeks in the awkward silence of the empty restaurant. Jasper insisted on sending it to the lab himself, needing to maintain some control over the situation. The results will take a week, he said, sealing the envelope. Until then, I need time to process this. I understand. I can stay at the motel on Highway 9 until... No. Jasper's voice was firm. If you're really her daughter, then your family. There's an apartment above the restaurant. Delilah lived there when we first met. You can stay there. Savannah's eyes widened. Are you sure? I'm not sure about anything right now. But I know Delilah will want to take care of you, whether you're her daughter or just someone who needs help. The week that followed was the longest of Jasper's life. He watched Savannah work in the kitchen, noting the way she moved with Delilah's grace, the way she seasoned by instinct rather than measurement. She cooked with the same quiet intensity, the same attention to detail that had made Delilah such a gifted chef. But more than that, he saw the similarities in their personalities. Savannah had Delilah's way of listening, of making people feel heard and valued. She noticed when the dishwasher seemed tired and brought him coffee without being asked. She remembered the names of regular customers and their favorite orders. You're just like her, Jasper said one evening as they cleaned the kitchen together. I hope so. She sounds like she was an amazing woman. But she was also human. She made mistakes, kept secrets, let fear make her decisions sometimes. Jasper paused in his wiping of the counter. I wish I'd known about you sooner. I wish she'd trusted me enough to tell me. She trusted you with everything else. This was about her own shame, not about you. The DNA results arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by certified mail. Jasper stared at the envelope for a full minute before opening it. Savannah sat across from him at the kitchen island, her hands folded in her lap. Do you want me to read it? She asked. We'll read it together. The results were conclusive. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. Savannah Creek was indeed the biological daughter of Delilah Marie Beaumont Thorne. Jasper set the paper down and looked at the young woman across from him. She wasn't a stranger anymore, wasn't a potential con artist or someone trying to take advantage of his grief. She was family. She was Delilah's daughter, and by extension, his daughter too. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'm sorry I doubted you, and I'm sorry your mother felt she couldn't trust me with the truth. There's nothing to apologize for. You were protecting yourself and her memory. Savannah's voice was gentle. But now we know for sure. The question is, what do we do now? Now we save this place. Together. Jasper reached across the table and took her hand. Delilah would want us to take care of each other. She wanted her recipes to live on, her legacy to continue. Are you sure you want to stay? I know this is overwhelming. I'm sure. You're the best chef I've ever worked with, and your family. That's enough for me. Over the next few months, Rosewood Kitchen was transformed. Savannah introduced Delilah's family recipes to the menu, dishes that told the story of generations of Beaumont women who had cooked with love and determination. The generations menu became famous throughout the region, drawing customers who came not just for the food, but for the stories that came with each dish. Jasper learned to see Delilah in new ways through Savannah's eyes. She shared stories from the letters, revealing facets of his wife's personality he'd never known existed. Delilah had been more complex than he'd realized, carrying wounds and dreams she'd never shared. She wrote about you constantly, Savannah told him one evening as they prepped for the next day's service. She said you gave her peace. She said she never felt alone when you were around. I felt the same way about her, even with her secrets. She knew that. She wrote that you love her not because she was perfect, but because she was real. She said that's what made it so hard to tell you the truth. She was afraid you'd realize she wasn't as real as you thought. Jasper looked around the kitchen, now alive with the sounds and smells of the dishes they created together. She was more real than she knew. Her love was real. Her cooking was real. Her care for people was real. The rest was just details. On a warm evening in early autumn, exactly 1 year after Savannah had first walked through the door, Jasper found her in the kitchen after closing time. She wore Delilah's apron over a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, working on a new recipe. "What are you making?" he asked. "Bread, pudding. I found the recipe in the very back of the notebook." She smiled. It was Mama Beaumont's, but Delilah added her own notes. She wanted to serve it with bourbon sauce and fresh whipped cream. Jasper watched her work, marveling at how natural it looked. She would have loved seeing you in her kitchen. I think she did see me. I think she brought me here. The bread pudding was perfect, warm, and comforting with just the right amount of sweetness. They ate it at the kitchen island, surrounded by the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic on the street outside. "I have something for you," Savannah said, reaching into her apron pocket. She pulled out a small envelope, different from the others. "I found this tucked inside the notebook. It's addressed to both of us." Jasper's hands trembled slightly as he opened it. The letter was shorter than the others, written in Delilah's careful script. Asterisk, "To my beloved Jasper, my precious Savannah, if you're reading this together, then love has found a way. I kept my secret because I was afraid, but I should have trusted that love is stronger than fear. Jasper, you gave me a home when I had none. Savannah, you gave me hope when I thought I had lost everything. Take care of each other, cook with love, and remember that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who choose to stay. All my love, always, Delilah." Asterisk. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Outside, the first leaves of autumn drifted past a window, golden in the streetlight. She knew, Jasper said finally. She hoped. Savannah folded the letter carefully. "There's a difference. What do you think she'd say if she could see us now?" Savannah smiled, and for a moment, Jasper could see Delilah in her expression. The same gentle joy, the same quiet strength. "I think she'd say we're exactly where we're supposed to be." That night, as Jasper locked up the restaurant, he paused to look through the window at the dining room. Tomorrow, families would gather at these tables, sharing meals and making memories. Children would laugh over chocolate chip pancakes, while their grandparents told stories of their own childhood. Young couples would share their first date over jambalaya that tasted like home. And in the kitchen, Savannah would cook with love, carrying on traditions that stretched back generations, added her own touches to create something new and beautiful. She was a bridge between past and future, the answered prayers Delilah had whispered in the darkness. Jasper touched his wedding ring, feeling the smooth gold warm against his skin. He still missed his wife every day, but the sharp edge of grief had softened into something gentler. Love, he'd learned, doesn't end with death. It transforms, finding new ways to grow and flourish. The truth about Delilah's secret had been painful, but it had also been a gift. It had brought him a daughter he never knew he had, and it had shown him new depths of the woman he loved. Her fear had been real, but so had her love, and in the end, love had won. As he walked home through the quiet streets, Jasper smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new customers, new opportunities to serve food made with love. And he wouldn't face them alone. He had family now, a daughter who carried his wife's gift and her own dreams. The stars were bright overhead, and somewhere in their light, Jasper could almost hear Delilah's laughter, soft and warm as summer rain. She was still with them, in every recipe they prepared, every story they shared, every moment of love that brought strangers together around the table. Rosewood Kitchen would endure, not just as a restaurant, but as a place where love lived on one meal at a time.